Okay, all right. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Welcome, everybody. I do have regrets from Deputy Mayor Armour, who in the last minute had something else. So with that, I'd like to ask Councillor Renwick, would you mind reading the land acknowledgement?
Absolutely. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty of number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take action towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thank you, Councillor Renwick. Before we go on to the meat of the meeting, I just wanted to acknowledge that we are wearing orange shirts today in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and to remember our history around residential schools and residential school survivors. This morning we raised a flag at our town hall in recognition of our survivors and the impact the schools have had on all of our communities, and also to start the week in preparation for next Monday, and we'll mention that later in the meeting. All right, thank you, everybody. With that, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Stone. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting agenda dated September 23rd, 2024 be adopted as printed and circulated. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor Alcock. Yeah, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest on agenda item 9.9, bylaw 2024-100. It's for personal reasons, and I own property close by to the property.
Thank you for that, Councillor Clark. So noted. And with that, we're moving right along to our deputation this evening. We do have one, and it's by Scott Young from the Muskoka Conservancy, and here to update council and make a request of council with respect to the Fairy View Conservation Area. I'm very much looking forward to this. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here at your meeting, and I appreciate you making time for my presentation. It's good to see you all. And actually, if I'd known you were going to be doing the orange shirt thing, I would have done it too, but unfortunately it caught me by surprise. So maybe next time, yeah. So what I'm here to talk about is one of our nature reserves in Huntsville that is under some pressure, and I think you might be able to help with that. And so I really see this as an opportunity to potentially do something together. And we've had a couple of little conversations about it with various people, and we just think that there's a potential win-win here for both the Conservancy and the town of Huntsville and the people who live here. So just a quick nutshell version of the Muskoka Conservancy. I'll start by telling you that I'm Scott Young. I'm the executive director of Muskoka Conservancy. I've been doing this since about 2015. So I've been busily working towards nature conservation in Muskoka for almost 10 years, and really enjoy it. It's fantastic work. We work hard every day to try to acquire properties and protect land for its ecological value, and it's a pretty rewarding career. To date, we've accumulated over 4,600 acres of land in Muskoka with almost 65,000 feet of protected shoreline on the big lakes, which includes Lake Vernon, Lake Bays. We do have several properties on around Fairy Lake, but we don't actually have any waterfront on Fairy Lake. That's something we'd like to resolve at some point if you happen to know anybody who has a lot of land there. So a total of 56 properties, 14 of them are in Huntsville Lake of Bays. about 605 acres of wetland, 805 acres of wetland. And this is all done without any government funding for operations. So everything we do, we're kind of hustling to fund for ourselves, right? And we're working with generous donors, landowners who want to protect their land and are working directly with us to do that. So it's an exciting, dynamic organization. We really do have to hustle to make it work. But it's working, and it's been around since 1987, and so you can be pretty confident that we're going to be around for a while. The specific property I wanted to talk to you about today, we call the Brook Nature Reserve. And you might be familiar with it. It's about 10 acres of land over in the, I don't know exactly what you call the neighborhood. I'm sort of calling it the Ferryview neighborhood. It's a rapidly developing part of Huntsville. There's lots of new subdivisions there, like some high density type townhouses. There's traditional sort of single family homes, but there's also a brand new high density sort of condo development going in there too. So there's lots going on all around this nature reserve. And what it's doing is actually is building up pressure on the nature reserve. Because just there's so it's been kind of engulfed by suburbs, and it's become a bit of an island. So as you can see in this photo, it is a busy area. It's rapidly growing. I think it's looks good on Huntsville to be working on some affordable housing in that area. So good for you. We have no issues with what you're doing over there. We think you're doing some good stuff, but we do need to think about the nature reserve and what's best for it, and maybe potentially work with the town on a resolution. We know the Ferry Vista Trail is over there, so we know there's hikers in the area, and people are accustomed to that kind of recreation, so that potentially fits in with what we're proposing having a conversation about here. A little bit of background on the nature reserve. It was donated, bequested in an estate to the Conservancy. We own it. It's private property. And the intended use of that land was for it to be a nature reserve, so protected for its ecological values. I've listed some of them on this slide. So you can see, I'm not going to go through it all, but there is, a good mix of Muskoka species there. It's a great birding location too. Like we've got a pretty good list of birds that's not on this list. And every once in a while we do see evidence of deer and the occasional moose and things like that wander through there. And so it's kind of a unique property in a place that's rapidly developing. And we've also worked in the past with the Rotary Club of Huntsville to do some tree planting there. So it's, got a history too of community involvement. So the challenges, I think we've noted over the years some encroaching neighbor issues with people kind of, it's quite common in town and, anywhere if there's private property ownership, people don't always know exactly where their property boundary is, and that's fine. We don't really take issue with that, but we have taken note that there has been a bit of yard waste dumping. The odd time people start cutting because they want a better view, and it's not like a really harmful activity, but it really is, they're crossing the property line in some cases. Not a big deal, but it's, something we observe. We have seen unleashed pets on the property too. Again, not a huge issue, but it does have an impact on the nature there. And there also is some invasive species, like just minor things like mint, right? It loves to just roam. There's a few things that we find near houses that, tend to creep out. Things like there's varieties of ground cover, for instance, so that they tend to come out and start going into the forest. And that kind of presents a problem from a nature conservation point of view too. And we have seen some evidence of small fires being set. So these are like little campfires, probably maybe burning your school books. Who knows what you're doing there? But if I remember back correctly, probably something that was plenty of fun. at the time. So those are some of our concerns with the sort of increased use of the property, more neighbors, more use, right? And so we're hoping to maybe start a conversation with the town of Huntsville about potentially managing that use rather than saying, no, you can't come on this land. Like, I just don't see that as a really viable solution. I think people are going to be there anyway. And if we want to protect the natural values and allow people on, we need to somehow channel that use so that people are using it in an acceptable way that protects the majority of it for the natural uses while still allowing people to access it on trails. And we have properties, other properties that we do this on, and we have clearly marked trails that are blazed clearly. People don't get lost. They're encouraged to stay on the trails. The routes are clearly marked. There's even some signage here and there with mapping and the odd arrow that says, you know, trails this way. Sometimes we'll put like a little footbridge, like a low footbridge. Sometimes we'll spread wood chips just to protect tree roots and things like that where needed. So these are very, they're not like asphalt or crushed gravel or anything. These are just nature trails that we're talking about. So that the barrier to entry of actually building them and maintaining them is quite low. It's not a high standard to maintain, but it is important because as a manager of trails, we know that every spring there's a windstorm and trees come down. And if you don't cut through them and if you don't kind of maintain these types of trails, they tend to disappear back into the forest. So you lose them. So maintenance is an important aspect of this conversation too. Signage and trail blazing, also very important. So this is the image on this slide is really just a conceptual thing of what could happen. We could have multiple, like 2 figure-8 type trails providing different loops and routes that people could take. It's a very small property. It's 10 acres, right? It's not the Trans-Canada Trail or anything, or Hardy Lake Provincial Park. It's nothing like that. It's not Arrowhead. It's a minor kind of community, like neighborhood amenity almost, we're talking about. But we're thinking multiple access points from the obvious places where we think people, or we know people are accessing it already. And in fact, the neighboring development that is pretty high density is essentially built a stone path right up to the property line as we speak. It's already there, so it's it's almost a case of I guess we're putting an access there if we go ahead with this rather than a fence. Makes more sense, right? So for the Conservancy, the primary use would always have to be nature conservation, and the secondary use would be the trail use. And so any kind of management plan would sort of have to acknowledge that. But we think there's room for a conversation between the town and the Conservancy on these things. And so a request that I thought, you know what, why would I come to visit the good people at the Huntsville Council and not make a request? Like, I'd be crazy, right? So I thought, let's put down some words here, and then maybe that gives you something to ponder, and maybe we actually get somewhere. So I'm asking that, and you don't need to do this tonight if you don't want. But I thought I'd throw it out there, like, why not approve the partnership in principle and allocate some resources to work on a discussion about, a management arrangement, or even just discuss, a potential budget, like how much, what's the quantum, even having those conversations about what does a joint management arrangement look like, or so it's pretty much it's open to you. I'm asking for a conversation essentially to start and get moving on these things so that we can protect this nature reserve.
Scott, I just want to say thank you very much for coming and doing this. But just from a personal perspective, before I turn it over to council for questions, I just think this is so incredibly timely. And it's such an opportunity. 10 acres may not seem like a lot, but when it's right in the middle of an area that is highly developed and continues to be developed, and that is a conservation area that is wood. It's a wooded area, is really one of those, it's a gem. And for the health of the community, from my perspective, it's exactly the kind of thing that we want to promote and protect. So I'm just putting that out there before I ask council if there are any questions while we have Scott here. The normal process for a deputation of this, I'm sure you will remember from your past days, is at the end of the regular meeting, we'll have under new business a full discussion of whether or not council wants to direct staff. So we will have a motion or potential a motion at that time. So yes, Councillor Stone.
Thanks. I just want to echo some of what you've said because this is perfect in this intensifying area. And we've received criticism about the way the town has grown in some areas, but this is the perfect solution of the growth in that area, and I can't be more supportive. I was actually surprised you had probably twice as many pathways in your concept as I thought, maybe just one snake down the route.
We looked at, I mean, it is just conceptual, but having walked the property and because the shape of it is so long and narrow, there's actually points where, because of a little bit of wetland here, or a little bit of grade, there's a large rock outcropping. It kind of channels people into an almost a figure eight, that like it kind of pushes people towards the middle in a few spots already, just naturally the lay of the land. And part of, like, when we put trails on one of our nature reserve properties, we always do it with a biologist and like a conservation mindset. So it's not always like what makes the most sense from a like geometric layout. It's more like, how does the land, where does the land say the trail's going? And in this case, actually, that they actually kind of do get pinched towards the center in a couple places.
Wonderful. Thank you. And it helps with our active transportation and
No
that
kidding.
we're trying to promote. Thank
Right,
you.
walking and, right. Thank you for that. Councillor Schumacher.
One comment and one question. I'm not sure if Scott can answer, but the comment is you can add bear activity, I think, to that list this year in particular. There's a lot of them in behind Mulwinnie in the back there, I have heard. The page 2, the dotted line that goes from Campus Trail through Cemetery Lane cuts across your property and then looks like it goes out over Glenwood into where our park is there. Does anyone know what that green dotted line is that travels?
I don't have the privilege of seeing that right
It's
now,
the
but
one
I,
on your package.
yeah, I
referred
think
to-
it's
yeah.
probably a hydro line,
What is it? Okay. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
hydro corridor. So it's, there's
Okay.
probably a like Ontario hydro
Hydro,
right of way there
okay.
or something
It's
like that.
not another trail route that goes like long and through. Okay.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Well, we have Mr. Young before us. I don't see any. Thank you.
Okay,
very
thanks
much
very
for the
much, Mayor and
presentation.
Council. I really appreciate your time today.
And you don't have to stick around.
Let me know the outcome of
we,
your
we
discussion.
will we will let you know for
Thanks very
sure.
much. Yeah.
That's a formality for sure. Thank you again. All right, moving right along. I have a motion moved by Councillor Cluche, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Be it resolved that the following council meeting minutes be adopted as printed and circulated. Regular Council, September 9th, 2024, and Planning Council, September 11th, 2024. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay, look at us moving right along. We're at 7.1, Reports for Information, Meeting Minutes, 7.1.1, Huntsville Public Library Board. Councillor Cluche, do you have anything you'd like to highlight?
Through you, Mayor, no, just as reported.
Okay. Are there any questions of Councillor Cluche? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to the Aspenden Hall Community Centre. Councillor Schumacher, anything to report?
I missed that meeting. The minutes are there. I had another celebration to go to on that particular day, but yeah, Notes are there if anyone has any questions.
I did read them, and I think I did, but I've forgotten. So there
Okay.
we go. I'll ask you another
I,
time.
that sounds
Okay.
good. I know I sent in ahead of time though, all the talk about the budget, because I know we were doing the whole community
Right.
push for
I
the
think
budget
they
for
did
this
have a
month, and they did
discussion
have
around
discussion
that,
around
a,
that,
a
so.
budget discussion.
yeah.
So that was you're exactly right. All right. No questions around that. So we'll move to 7.1.3, Downtown Huntsville BIA, July 11th and 31st and August 8th. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the minutes are there before you. You can have a look. But I just want to call to your attention a couple of things from the BIA, and one in particular, just to welcome Rachel Hunt as the new Executive Director for Downtown Huntsville. So she spent many years, I think 13, maybe 14 years as the chair of the BIA, and now she has stepped into the Executive Director role, and she's very excited, and the smile on her face I don't think has come off.
That's
So there's
fantastic.
actually
A meet and greet tomorrow.
there is a
right?
meet and greet tomorrow in Partners Hall between 1 and 3 p.m. and all of council are invited. And anyone in the community listening, if you'd like to come down and meet Rachel, if you don't already know her, she downtown or tomorrow in Partners Hall from 1 till 3. Just another reminder too that the Tiny Tots Halloween Parade is happening on October 26th. That's on a Saturday. And the AGM for the BIA is actually on October 17th this year, and it's at the Huntsville Festival of the Arts little studio off Mill Park.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's it.
Thank you for that. Any
Welcome.
questions of Councillor Renwick? Okay, thank you for that. And on to 7.1.4, Municipal Accommodation Tax Association, HMATA, July 16th and 25th. Councillor Morrison, anything to update?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Not much to report other than what's in the minutes. We are opening up another round of intake presentations for potential funding. And other than that, we're just status quo at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And finally, 7.1.5, Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce update. There are also two sets of minutes, June 20th and August 15th. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. And nothing to highlight from those minutes. The only thing I want to share with you is that you may have already noticed that the celebration that the Chamber is having, that was going to have tomorrow, the celebration of the 125 years that the Chamber of Commerce has been around, has been postponed due to weather. So it was due for tomorrow night, so they will reschedule that. But if anyone had bought tickets, they'll get their money back or they'll get refunded. So it is postponed.
Okay. Thank you for that. I did get notification of that. I think I was planning on attending. All right. We are moving along to reports from municipal officers, and we do have one, 8.1, from Jacqueline Surrett and Jillian Jordan, report number CS-2024-11, Muskoka Heritage Place Restoration of Sugar Shack Budget Variance. And I do have a motion. Has been moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that Council approve an overall increase in project costs of $30,000 for the restoration of the Muskoka Heritage Place Sugar Shack building to bring the project total to $76,000, and further that the budget variance be funded from the Muskoka Heritage Place Hartley Bequest Reserve. Jacqueline, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Chair. So just further to the motion, just to give a little bit of context as to where the increases come from. The scope of work for the Sugar Shack was developed in 2022 with an engineer, and it involved reuse of a lot of the existing material along with the building envelope. So in this year, after Council's approval of another variance, new engineered drawings were sourced by the contractor that was awarded as part of the permitting process, and that has revealed that the Sugar Shack has rapidly deteriorated. Oh, wow, I couldn't say that. Rapidly. It's almost like saying Sugar Shack. So it's rapidly deteriorated, and that's more quickly than they anticipated. And so the project engineer is recommending that it be rebuilt, which will also, in fact, provide an opportunity actually for us to move it closer to the village where we can first, gain more public access. It'll be more visible to the public as well. And I was told that it provides the untapped potential for programming by moving it closer. I told my staff I'd
Thank
figure out
you
a way to
very
put
much
that in
for
there.
saying that. That's so great.
Yeah, so it's been out of commission for a little while now, so we're really excited to get it restored, as it is an important part of our history and our present economy, so maple syrup. And so this is a timely request. We do have grant funding for this project, and it expires December 31st, 2024. So thank you, and I appreciate your time and having me here tonight. And I
Thank you.
can answer any of your questions.
And
hopefully.
thank you for being here to speak to it. Are there any questions with respect to this report? It's a good one. Oh, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Jacqueline. Just quickly, the $30,000 that's coming out of the Hartley request reserve, how much does that leave in the reserve? Do you know if we take out that 30? Was it 134?
So it will leave $144,783.
Oh, thank you, it's down there. Yep. If I read a little further, thank you very much.
No problem.
There was a bit of a thing there. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Good report. I'm hoping that we're going to follow some more current building practices with the new shack, and we don't have as quick a deterioration. I guess this question's for Julia. Do we invest that reserve, or is it hands off, or can we make that grow somehow, or is it growing?
Director McKenzie.
So we don't have that directly invested in or directly put into a specific investment. We have all of our investments for the town as one pot. So this one we don't, because we're not sure what the intention is, if it's going to be spent right away or if it's going to be spent over time.
We're using it.
Very little by little. So
Little
I,
bits.
it's consideration we should look at, maybe.
Maybe. Yes, Jack.
Sorry, if I could answer that or attempt to answer that. We do have a report forthcoming to satisfy one of the council directives with respect to the spending of the Hartley Reserve. It will hopefully be coming in October. We're just waiting. We understand there may be some housekeeping from the estate, which may result in some further funds to the town. So we're waiting for that, and then we'll report back.
Well, that's exciting, and that will speak to your question for sure,
Good luck
Councillor
with the
Fitzgerald.
project.
All right, I don't see any other hands up, so I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Thank you for the report. Good luck with that. Okay. Right, sorry, we're moving to, can't believe it, to bylaws and agreements for passage already. And starting with 9.1, we do have a clarification. So I'll start with that motion first. It has been moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. Be it resolved that Council, after due consideration of the proposed Skidmore and Checkley CPP bylaw 2024-101 and the amendment with the addition of previous site-specific zoning provision SR 0124 be removed from the lands considered subsequent to the public meeting, hereby conclude that the amendment is not of such a nature that further notice be given with respect to the proposed CPP bylaw amendment pursuant to Section 3417 of the Planning Act. Are there questions with respect to this clarification? No? So I will call the question on the clarification. All those in favor? And that carries. Okay. So the next motion I have is with respect to the other bylaws, moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2024-93 to 2024-99 and 2024-101 to 2024-103 be reported and passed this 23rd day of September 2024. 9.2, I guess I need to read all of them, don't I? You're going to look at me, yes, yes, yes.
You could ask it.
If I have permission from council to waive the reading of all of the bylaws, they are as they were in our agenda package. All right? minus one, but we're voting on that one directly right after this because that is the one that Councillor Clark declared a pecuniary interest. So, is that clear as mud for everybody? All right. So, I am going to call the question on all of the bylaws as presented in our agenda package. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Thank you all. And I have a separate motion moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. This is the one that Councillor Clark has declared a pecuniary interest. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-100-burst 748 Old North Road CPP be reported and passed this 23rd day of September 2024. Questions, comments? All those in favor? And that carries. I was looking at you, Councillor Clark, about to say something. All right. Okay, so we're now at new business, and this is our one item under new business, which is with respect to the proposal from Scott Young at the start of the meeting. And we do have a proposed motion. Why don't I read it? Do I have a mover and a second? I have a mover. I just always feel like I have a mover. Councillors, I do. That's the word I was looking for. Councillor Stone, you're sold. Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder, and a shaker. Mover and that's perfect. Thank you. All right. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Schumacher, whereas on September 23rd, 2024, Council received a deputation from Scott Young, Muskoka Conservancy, regarding installation of town-maintained trails on the Muskoka Conservancy Brook Nature Reserve. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council supports the proposed partnership for installation and maintenance of trails in principle, and further that staff be directed to work with Muskoka Conservancy to identify operational, budget, and legal implications of installing and maintaining the trails on an ongoing basis. Questions? I'll put my glasses on so that I can see if anybody has their hand up. Questions? Yes, Councillor Cluche.
Through you, Mary. I don't have a problem with this at all, but I can see maybe a problem because of the proximity of the entrance of the trails that are all in neighborhoods and there's no parking. So where are the people going to park when they're going to use the trail? I think that's something that we're going to have to look at.
I think that's a great question. Certainly our staff can look at that. My guess is that the way it was presented by Mr. Young is it really will be something that the immediate neighborhood, the people in, there's been a lot of development in that area. So I would think that for the most part, the people in the neighborhood who will be able to walk to it and not necessarily drive. It won't necessarily be a destination. That would be my guess, but I could be
True, but I'm just saying that it might be something we might have to look at an issue.
Right.
Once the trails are put in. Right now, the people are using it, it's fine, but once it's put in on a trail, and I'm sure it'll become part of our trail map system, as Councillor Stone had mentioned. So that's something that we should keep in the back of our mind, that's all.
Absolutely. Great question. I just want to say goodbye to Mr. Riviere Anderson. He was here for one of the bylaws, and it was passing of the new home bylaw and the ongoing work that's been going on for 13 years on that particular separation of lands, and so that the new home community center can start in earnest. And thank you very much for all that you've done for that project.
All the councillors, past and present, that supported this, unfailing through unbelievable processes. It's very emotional time. Thank you.
And I think it shows a lot of respect that you were here tonight to see it pass. Thank you. All right, my apologies, but he was wandering out and I had to say it. So I just had to say it. I wanted to say thank you to our staff as well for that, because a lot of hours went into that. So, Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor Alcock. So I absolutely support trails and walking paths. We definitely need them in this particular area. It continues to see growth, as we've heard. I guess, and I don't have any problem supporting this in principle. The only concern I have is the amount of extra work it's going to put on our operations department. I'm a little bit concerned about that. We already know that there's a lot of pressures to get everything done that needs to be done now. So I would like to see, I guess, I'd like to see some kind of report come back here from operations to let us know what is the plan, what could be done, what the cost might be. I don't know if that could be part of what the process that we've seen within the motion or not, but that's just a couple thoughts I had.
No, thank you very much for that. So I'm just looking at the motion. And as it's currently worded, it says, staff be directed to work with Muskoka Conservancy to identify operational, budget, and legal implications. Do you think that covers that, or you just, I think staff are hearing you loudly, and I think that's important. Yes, follow up?
And operations will be part of those discussions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm seeing Randy. Yes. Yes, CAO Corey, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Worship. So it would actually fall under that division to come back with reports. So they will obviously provide information with respect to cost for operations, what are the legalities with respect to the trail, privately owned, maintained by the town. So all of that will form part of the report.
Okay. Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, I was mostly going to echo what Councillor Clark said in regards to coming back with, or at least having something. Budget-wise, I don't know if it will fit into the 25 and the 2-year budget, but hopefully maybe it will. It might be something that we'll have to look at further down the road at this point, depending on how much, because I'm sure our issue with what a trail would look like from a town perspective might be a little different than what basically is there too. So I think there's going to be some work that is going to be quite a cost. But in principle, I do support it. To Councillor Cloutier's comment, some people do park right now at the water treatment center, access Fairview Trail, and then would be able to access that one. But I don't know if we want to inundate the treatment center with a bunch of parking at this point either.
Okay, appreciate those comments for sure. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Thank you, everybody. Let's see. Okay, so we are moving along, and I've just lost my agenda. There we go. So, also, it wasn't the only item under new business. I lied. We have a 10.2. And that is, we are looking for support from council for AMCTO's Municipal Elections Act recommendations. And it's a very long motion. So again, I'm going to ask council if you wouldn't mind asking me to waive the reading of it, because it's very long. That you're asking. Thank you very much. And I will ask our deputy clerk if she wouldn't mind, if there are any questions about this, but if she wouldn't mind speaking to this, unless our clerk was going to, just briefly to say why it's before us. And our clerk, I think, is jumping in.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. So as the motion notes, our Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario have been working diligently on recommendations to the Municipal Elections Act, which is very, very old and outdated. So we've been, the association's been trying for some time to get some push on getting these amendments. So this is they've asked all the municipal clerks to take these to their councils to try to get this going. We did have an amendment a few years ago, and we received it literally in April, and nominations open May 1st. So they don't really do things quickly. So we're trying to be a little proactive and do it a little farther out.
Thank you very much for that. Certainly, it's a long motion, but it is really important, no question about it. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this question, I guess, would be to the clerk. Why is the Ministry of Education included in this? Is this something that?
Great question.
Because we have school board elections.
Thank you.
Right. Yes, and given where you were, a lot of screech might have been involved. Might have been, I don't know, something like that. No, it was a great question. Any other questions? I don't see any, so I'm calling the question. All those in, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Morrison, and the first line is, whereas elections rules need to be clear, supporting candidates and voters in their electoral participation and election administrators in running elections. And the rest is exactly as it was in our agenda package. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And thank you for putting that on the agenda. To our clerks. Moving right along. Under general information, we have council correspondence from August 21st to September 13th. Were any questions around that? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the District of Muskoka update. Perhaps we could start with you, Councillor Stone.
Happily, nothing earth-shattering. We awarded contracts for physiotherapy at both our long-term care homes for 3 years. We had 4 paramedics that were working full-time but on a temporary basis in Gravenhurst, and we've made those permanent now, as well as 2 full-time paramedics in West Muskoka in the McTier area. So that's going forward. And we awarded more tenders for Fairburn. And but we did hear it's on track. So it will be the spring of 26 it opens.
That's fantastic, and I'm glad to hear that because I said that. I spoke to the Friends of Fairburn on Saturday night, and I said exactly like I said that. So, and they heard me say it. So there we go. And they were really delighted to hear about the that and the daycare spaces at Fairburn. They hadn't, not everybody knows about that yet. So they were very happy to hear that. So thank you for that. Are there any questions of Councillor Stone? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Morrison, Corporate and Finance.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Yeah, other than the minutes, the one thing I do want to point out is the climate change action plan that came forward. We are putting I believe it's $50,000 in the 2025 budget to start to meet our climate change goals. And then the funding increase will go up to $475,000 per year in the 2026 budget and ongoing for 10 years. So they're putting some money aside for that to try to hit our goal. And I guess on Finance and Corporate Services from the Huntsville level, I should mention that our budget survey is out until the 30th of this month. So we've had some good feedback already, but I encourage anyone who wants to send their feedback to find that budget survey. Give us as much information as you can, and we'll use that as we do our budget. That's it.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions of Councillor Morrison? Seeing none. I know that Deputy Mayor Armour is away, and just there were a couple of items at Public Works I thought of note. And that was staff did an update on capacity allocation and a strategy for how they would like to proceed with developments where we thought that the capacity allocation was resolved with our larger treatment plants, but in fact, it's the next level down, the pumping stations and other things. So they had a work around that to help the process while they upgrade the equipment. And so that was passed at Public Works, and I think it's really good news for a couple of our our developments in Huntsville. So that was a bit of an update. The other was there was a deputation from a developer talking about an old development here in Huntsville out of Port Sydney and putting in a request that the district had put a moratorium on collecting recycling and garbage and compost on private roads. And what the developer said was it's not consistent policy because when the big bins were removed, the district went forward and started collecting on private roads and then stopped. So that particular developer was looking for consistency in the district's policy around that. That would be Larry Ross's in Port Sydney. So I thought that was worth noting, not that committee did anything with that. A quick update on district council. There was really very little to update. It was a short meeting, a couple of reports, but not, I would say, of note. But I will say on community and planning services, there was a lengthy discussion around an oral presentation we had from the Muskoka Community Land Trust on moving forward with the development here in Huntsville and asking the district for ongoing funding, which had already been committed, and the staff report that was attached to that agreed to the ongoing funding, which was close to $200,000, but there was an additional request for $320,000 to allow the trust to start preparations around all of the necessary studies that have to be done for the Florence Street development. And staff had not recommended moving forward at that point, and it was kind of unclear as to when they were ready to bring a report back. Committee chose to direct staff to start working with the trust on that particular funding request, because if it didn't, it would mean that the project on Florence Street would have come to a halt. And so committee decided to change that direction, and it was unanimous at committee. So there was a long discussion around that. And there is an upcoming meeting October 9th with all of the participants, including the town, the trust, the district, and their new person who is planning to do the development on the Florence Street project to discuss a whole lot of different issues around it. So more to come on that. And then there was one other item that it's quickly escaping me. Yes, no, committee supported the application. The district is putting in a proposal to the province in response to their call for their brand new homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hubs, of which they're proposing to have 12 across the province. And it's kind of an exciting project, a new call for proposals from the province, and we're going to have stiff competition, but committee, of course, endorsed the idea of going forward with that. So that's my update on CAPS and my district update. Are there any questions on that? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just curious, it was at 320,000 in addition to the granting on Florence Street, or?
It was in addition, which was, and it was a last minute request, which is why I was a bit, there wasn't a lot of information at this particular meeting. The developer from Raising the Roof did a presentation on it. And it is specifically for things like the planning analysis, environmental assessments, all of the studies that we would ask for any other development. How it gets to 320,000, that was a max, a cap. I'm not sure it will get to that. And again, staff will do a full analysis, but they were directed to come back with a report on that. The 120,000 was all previously committed And that goes for ongoing operations to help the land trust do all of the background work, their consultations with CMHC. They pay an executive director. Ultimately, the district will not be required to pay for that when there are units on the Florence Street development or anywhere else that will pay for those.
Well, I applaud committee's decision on that then. So
Yeah, it
we
was,
need that to go forward.
yeah, thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions, so we do have another report under general information. It was from the Integrity Commissioner, looking at 2023, 2024 activity. Were there any questions around that? I don't have the answers, but certainly our clerk might, so. All right. With that, we'll move right along. We did have reference to the flag raising today for Hope Arises, but I already made reference to that. So we will go to events and updates. And the first one is in reference to National Coaches Week. And a little while ago, I was approached by John Cowan, who's here tonight, to ask council to recognize the importance of National Coaches Week, which is from September 16th to the 22nd. Perhaps in future years, we will have a flag raising to recognize that. We didn't do it in time for this year, but next year perhaps John will be able to do that. But basically, National Coaches Week puts a spotlight on coaches, and to give this largely volunteer, integral part of a Canadian sport a thanks, a big thanks. It encourages Canadians to say thanks and to celebrate the tremendous positive impact coaches have on athletes in all of our communities. And Huntsville certainly is a huge community for volunteer time to our coaches and everything that we do and all of the sports that we are engaged in, and Huntsville is engaged in a lot. Council members are encouraged to use the thanks coach on media postings over the course of the week. And during the week, thousands of coaches will receive a thanks coach message and be invited to participate in various celebratory events, including free online clinics and virtual workshops. So there's more information on National Coaches Week that is available at www.coach.ca, National Coaches Week. So next year we'll have a flag raising, I'm sure. But that was, we wanted to give a big shout out to that for the first time. Thanks, John, for raising that with us. Next one is this September 23rd to 29th is Rail Safety Week. And I don't have any words for that, but it is Rail Safety Week. And as well, it's National Forest Week from September 22nd to 28th. It's also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month for the, and that is, since we're already, almost through September, I'm assuming that September is, I'm not sure. Anyway, it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And I had added that on October 4th, the Muskoka Watershed Council is hosting for the first time since before COVID, it's Muskoka Summit on the Environment. And this year, the theme is all about resilience and talking about adapting and mitigating our response to climate change. And it is a fantastic precursor to the town of Huntsville. We'll be hosting an event with 13 municipalities and 5 First Nations on what we're doing as far as integrated watershed management. So I'm just putting it out there that the Muskoka Summit on the Environment is October 4th, and that is open to the public and should be a fantastic day event. And at this point, I think I'm turning it over to Councillor Schumacher to talk about some of our Town of Huntsville events.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. Yes, I have announcements for council. The week of coming up, as we go into Orange Shirt Day, activities on September 30th. So the town of Huntsville, the Huntsville Public Library and Hope Arises project invites the community to join in on Huntsville's 4th annual Orange Shirt Day activities on September 30th, 2024. So, it is National Day for Truth and Reconciliation and Orange Shirt Day in Canada. This National Day commemorates the tragic history and healing journey of residential school survivors, their families, and the children who never returned home. Locally, we are gathering on September 30th at Rivermill Park at 10:45 a.m. and we'll walk together through the downtown, returning to Rivermill Park at noon when special guest Joyce Crone, president of Hope Arises, will then take the stage. We're also thrilled to be presenting a local screening of the film The Nature of Healing, Voices of Mohawk Institute Survivors, that evening at the Algonquin Theatre. The Nature of Healing, an internationally award-winning film documentary, is the riveting spoken truth of 7 survivors of the Mohawk Institute in Brantford, Ontario. This feature film, produced and directed by Canadian Indigenous filmmaker Faith Howe of Jam Lab Productions, is a story of resistance, resilience, and healing. Tickets can be purchased through the theater's website. And more on events at Orange Shirt Day, Huntsville Public Library.
Thank you for that, Councillor Schumacher. Were there any questions about that? Okay, thank you for that. And certainly, I think there'll be a big contingent of people next Monday for sure. All right, with that, we are going to move
Can
into...
we talk about other events?
Oh, did I miss your hand, Councillor Fitzgerald? I didn't mean
As
to.
Monty likes to call me, the mayor of Port Sydney. My wife likes the First Lady accolade, but I would just like to remind everyone of the turkey dinner in Port Sydney. I miffed. I'm not sure which year it is. Do you know, Councillor Schumacher?
I want to say 70.
Oh,
I really do.
I think
wanna
we're
say
over that
at
one, but
no? Okay.
I know it is Saturday the 5th. It's always the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I know the mayor is volunteering, and I know that we have a former councillors volunteering and some current councillors volunteering. If you don't want to volunteer, come and have dinner. It's very good, and it's a beautiful time of year to visit Port Sydney. So,
Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. It's a lovely event. It is so joyful. And that's kind of a nice thing, I have to say. So one reason why I like to participate in it. Mhm.
and can you call a break before we go into closed?
Okay, thank you. And do I do that now before we read the, all right. Okay, all right. So you might as well do that before we
Thank
go into, yes.
Well, no, just I wanted to reiterate that I did attend the Stisted Fall Fair on September 8th. Well attended. It's a great event. And of course, we do celebrate it is this time of year that we celebrate fall fairs. Huntsville, of course, just had theirs on the weekend. And as chair of accessibility, one of the things that I did want to note is we had worked very hard to have them recognize the ability to have people with disabilities be able to park in that facility, because we did have some recognition that people had been turned away in previous years because there wasn't parking. And so they did actually get back to us that they had parked a good 50 vehicles with disability plates on the Saturday, and they had stopped counting on Sunday by like 76 or something. They'd stopped counting. So kudos to that committee to, you know, create an event that became an inclusive and accessible event for the Huntsville Fall Fair. And again, the Stisted Fall Fair is just lovely. If anyone has never had the chance to go, it is a just amazing little community event up there. And just, yeah, celebrate that we have fall fairs and farming activity that is prevalent in this area.
And I want to say thank you for going on my behalf to that. That was great, and I'm sorry I missed it. I agree with you. It is a lovely fair.
Yeah, you
It's
get
really
to be the person who
classic.
they kick
It
a
is
shoe
so-
at. It's lovely.
It
Yeah.
is. No, but it has the traditional aspects of judging, you know, tomatoes and plants and all sorts of, it's quite a great, it's great. It is, it is. So I also forgot to mention one other thing that a number of us attended, and that was the announcement in our community by Minister Surma and MPP Smith of a $51 million contribution to infrastructure in the town of Huntsville for the upgrading of our Mount View treatment plant. But not more importantly, but equally important is all of the things that I mentioned earlier about the requirements to upgrade all of the ancillary infrastructure that goes with. So our pumping stations and pipes that connect and stormwater systems, all of that. It was frankly a historical investment that goes through the district because these are district projects, but it certainly assists with the ongoing development that we have here in Huntsville. And the impact actually, there were representatives from across the district who attended this event. And it does have an impact on the rest of the district because the money that was allocated through this funding announcement can now be released. It was already planned for by the district, and so that money will now be directed towards other projects throughout the district. So it was a tremendous announcement. We are very, very appreciative, and I just think it's important that the public know that the province committed for $51 million to support. And largely it was for water treatment and everything related to it, but in support for more development of residential homes. So that was the emphasis from the province. So I wanted to get that in before I forgot. Yes, any questions? Nope. Okay, so I think we should have a 10-minute break before we go into closed. Okay? I think I'm supposed to Okay, welcome back, everybody. We've finished our break, and I do have a motion that has been moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public commencing now at 6:43 p.m. for the purpose of considering the following matters under Section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001, subsections D, labor relations or employee negotiations, and I, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. 12.2.1 Confidential Report HR 2024-5 Compensation and an Internal Equity Review 2. Subsection C, a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality or local board. 12.3.1 Communication Tower Lease Agreement Update. Questions, comments? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much, and we're back in open, and we've just come out of long conversation and closed, and I have a motion that has been moved by Councillor Cluche, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the substituted recommendation for confidential report HR 2024-5, staff compensation and inequity? Equity, I was going to say. I don't think it's inequity, it's equity review to be adopted. All those in favor? That carries. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2024-104 be received and passed this 23rd day of September 2024. All those in favor? And that carries. And I have a final motion moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Cluche. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 8:29 p.m. All those in